Get up, just stay right there and rest. Okay, you know, we're doing several of these today, and this one is tremendously important. It surely took time, I'm sure, for our great senators and our great House members to work their way through this, but this has been a process that's been going on for a long time, and there's been a real feeling that there is redundancy, and therefore there's true cost savings, and there's even other aspects of this where it complicates teachers and learning and everything else, and so administrators, whatever it may be. Now, so then after we got through these great bodies, then it comes to me. My primary concern is just this, is first and foremost, is there true savings? You know, and secondarily, well, maybe, let me go back. First and foremost, are we going to be able to do this seamlessly where no one will get hurt? That's the first thing. The second thing is, what is the magnitude of the true savings, and are they significant? And the third thing is just this, and I've been a real stickler on this, is the fact that we have to be able to grow the arts in West Virginia. We don't want to get in a situation where the outside world is looking at us and saying, you know, we know how West Virginia really is, and they don't place a lot of importance on the arts, and we should. And so through the last few days, we've done a lot of working together. President Carmichael, Speaker Armstead, my group and everything, we've done a lot of working together to come to a consensus that everybody supports, and that is just this, and that is that we'll develop a department of the arts, and we won't have a secretary because there's no real need in eliminating a secretary and creating a secretary. That causes all kinds of confusion. But we'll create a department of the arts, and we'll create a position called the curator of the arts. And that's the fitting name of the title that it should be, because that person should perpetuate the arts going forward. Now, we need legislation to be able to get to there, and so there's components of that we're still not completely certain about. So don't ask me who that's going to be. Don't ask me, you know, exactly the specifics of all that and everything, because we're still working on it. But we are all committed, that's House, Senate, and myself, wholeheartedly committed to growing the arts. And we're also committed to not losing anything that could damage or hurt any of our people. And we're very committed on one thing, and that is saving our government money and doing our job. If we're just absolutely doing things that are redundant and throwing money away, you put us all here to save you money and to try to do things as efficiently as we can, and that's what we're trying to do. So with that, I'd like two people to speak here for sure, and that's Paul and Steve, because they are probably the most knowledgeable of all. I'd like for Steve to talk with you in the fact of the magnitude of just the educational component of the magnitude of the redundancy and savings of money. And you're going to see that it's going to be $2.6 million. Well, $2.6 million is real money, and it can do things within our state, and that's, again, our job. And then Paul can talk to you about different aspects of the advantages to our teachers and our administrators in the learning process, and as well as what we're going to do with the arts. But We'll lead off with Steve. Steve, you go, wherever you are.
Sure, yes, sir. So we're pleased to work with the governor and the legislature on this bill. Probably, we can't cover all the services that are provided by the Center for Professional Development, but those that they do that are codified, principal training, we already do that, we do it well. So we see that as an area where we can consolidate trainings for principals. Advanced placement training of teachers, we do that as well. We work with advanced placement teachers all the time. We think that we can conduct that training just as well and build on the quality that already exists and actually improve that. We also are very fond of the Energy Express program. We've been assured at the federal level that funding is not interrupted, that monies can be transferred from one agency to another, and we have that in writing. We've also been assured by the U.S. Department of Education Office of Special Education and Rehabilitation Services that that money can also be transferred from one agency to another without any interruption of service, and we have that in writing. So we're really eager. I could get into more detail, Governor, but the bottom line is we do estimate that when the initial bill came out, we were asked to do a fiscal note on just the Center for Professional Development. After the progression of the bill through the legislative process, we took a look at other aspects of not only the Center for Professional Development, but the Secretary's office and other agencies where we thought we could find real savings. After the appointment of my deputy, Clayton Birch, as the interim secretary, we were able to get inside the budget, and we have hard, true, factual numbers of $2.6 million that we think we can save.
Well, Governor Justice, I would like to begin by thanking you and your staff for carefully considering this legislation and doing your due diligence so that you could come to, I believe, the same conclusion that we in the legislature came to, that we could enact this meaningful education reform and this government efficiency legislation in a way that does not disrupt programs or put at risk federal funding. And again, I just appreciate your efforts and your willingness to carefully consider this legislation so that you could join us in coming to that conclusion. I will also reiterate that this legislation is very much a result of a status report that was provided to the Joint Committee on Education back in August of 2016, where the State Board of Education called upon the legislature to remove statutes that prevent the State Board of Education from providing and really supervising professional development for our educators in West Virginia. Certainly this legislation, in addition to driving decision-making regarding professional development down to the classroom level so that principals can lead and teachers can teach. Obviously, there are opportunities for efficiencies, and certainly commend the Department of Education, Interim Secretary Birch, for their efforts to help ensure that we're able to achieve maximum efficiencies and also to avoid any disruptions in services.
Well, thank you, Paul. Let me say one other thing, and then we'll take your questions. And we can't take 500 questions because, you know, we've got lots of these we're doing today and everything, but we'll take some questions and then move on. But I want to say something about another individual that's here, and that's President Carmichael. You know, President Carmichael is a friend, first and foremost, and really and truly, we had a tough go of it in the session. Not he and I, but it was tough in a lot of ways. You know, he stands here today proud of what we're doing within education. We're making education better. We're absolutely committed to the arts. He's committed to the arts. We're absolutely committed to make education better and to not throw money away. You know, a lot of times people have to make tough decisions, and in these roles sometimes that they can be construed a lot of different ways. But this is a supporter of education and a good man. And so I really appreciate it. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now, I can sign the bills. Okay. Okay, here we go. Didn't bring my glasses, so I won't be able to see. but we'll make it happen. And Sue, you can come up here. I don't know why you're back there, crying out loud.
Thank you.
Anybody else, you know, from our House or Senate, please?
Kayla?
Oh, yeah, come on, Kayla. Y'all will make the picture look a lot better, I can tell you that. Okay. Yeah, I messed up there. Okay. This one goes here. Okay, guys, progress. That's what we want to do. Okay, now y'all are going to have to, Sue, I'm going to let you distribute pens where everybody doesn't fight over the pens. Now, fire away. We'll hang with you as long as we can here.
What's going to be in this department that you're forming? I mean, are you going to be moving any of these divisions or agencies that have been moved by House Bill 4006 into this new department? Or is it really you're just taking a position saying that they're going to be the curator of the arts and not actually creating a new department?
No, we're going to move things into that department for sure. Now, it's not been decided exactly what yet, and maybe, Paul, you could talk a little bit about that and give us a little bit better insight, but you know, I hate to tell you this, but absolutely we're going to be moving things into the department.
Governor, as you're aware, our approach all along from when we first started drafting this legislation back in August of 2016 was to try to be responsive to the agencies, to try to solicit their input, understand where they thought they would best fit. We've certainly been in discussions with the governor and his staff, and are certainly open to continuing to look at, you know, where some of the surviving agencies go. So I think some of those decisions, as I understand it, are yet to be finalized, but we're certainly, as a legislature, we're certainly open to making sure that those agencies, you know, do end up in the most effective location for them.
And so is that going to be done through a special session before July 1st? Because from my understanding, a lot of these changes in this bill are going to take effect July 1st. And so they would be moving to new agencies effective July 1st. And then if we wait till the next session, regular session, then we're going to have to pass a bill that removes them come next July 1st. So is this going to happen in a special session?
Absolutely, absolutely. And all of you know me this way. I mean, for good or for bad, you know I'm an impatient guy, you know, and, you know, that's just how I live my life. And so we're going to do it sometime in May.
Do you think that gives enough time between May and July to make sure everything moves around?
Yeah, absolutely. According to these people who are the experts, absolutely, we'll have plenty of time to make sure that the right combinations are put together and move forward.
Is there going to be anything else on this special session agenda? I mean, is it just going to be on this one issue?
Probably not. You know, one of the things that I really want us to look at, you know, is the sports betting. You know, from the standpoint that it could be really good for our state. I want us to go back and revisit this integrity fees from the standpoint of developing and bringing on the major leagues. We've even been contacted, and these people don't know this up here, but we've even been contacted as recently as the day before yesterday from the NCAA, and they're wanting in, and you know, they want to be a proponent as well. So there's probably a couple things we can put on it, but this, in my opinion, is the most important.
The, as far as, I mean, when you spoke about, Delegate Espinoza, when you spoke about this deal, I recall you saying that a reason for the dismantlement of the whole department was if we're moving Center for Professional Development into the Department of Education, why not get rid of the rest of it since you're taking out this big piece? Do you personally support creating yet another department to house these agencies as the governor is proposing? Do you personally actually support creating another department as early as May?
I've made very clear, and I think the legislature's made very clear, that we're very much committed to the arts and share the governor's commitment to ensuring that the arts has an effective advocate going forward. Certainly we're open to, refining this legislation to, again, ensure just that the arts has a very strong voice, in the governor's cabinet. So I think what the governor's proposed and what we've discussed with the governor of establishing a department of the arts, and I believe that perhaps would be combined with culture and history, I think that's certainly consistent with this legislation, and I think it can be done in a way that does not reduce the efficiencies that are achieved through this legislation.
Let me say one thing, in regard to that. The work that has been done, I mean, the things that we have uncovered, there's no question whatsoever that there are some levels of redundancy. Now, what is our great delegate or our great president or myself, what are we tasked to do? If we're throwing money away that we don't need to be throwing money away, we need to fix it. I mean, I'll put it down in common terms. We need to fix it, And the next thing is just this, is do we throw the baby out with the dishwater? Of course we don't, And so from that standpoint, if we couldn't have the Department of Arts, I wasn't going to go along with this. That's all there is to it. And so we compromise. We do the things that we're supposed to do here in every way. We make things better. Now, that's what we've done, and that's what we're going to do. So I am really confident that this state, $2.6 million on education, and there could very well be some additional savings in arts, or maybe not, but nevertheless, $2.6 million of savings is something we ought to address, because we got people that are really hurting that we could do something with $2.6 million to help them.
Could you give us a better idea of what that 2.6 million is coming from?
Did you?
Steve, or anyone?
Yeah, from, as we've said, the Center for Professional Development, also from the Secretary's office itself, and some of the programs that we know that we can handle without much difficulty at all. I want to say this, that as Chair Espinoza and Mr. President have said, we have some outstanding educators out in the field too, teachers, principals, superintendents. They conduct the bulk of all professional development that goes on in this state. And so as I've said to superintendents this year, you're going to receive a lot of increased flexibility at that district level. With that, you need to assume robust responsibility. So we're counting on them to deliver meaningful professional development that, that needs to be conducted.
I think one of the things that we've heard clearly from educators and administrators across the state is that they want to make sure that the professional development that is being delivered to educators is the most relevant and most impactful for our educators, to help make them as effective as possible. And I certainly commend the Center for Professional Development for their efforts to provide quality professional development. But the major thrust of this legislation is to really push that decision-making down to the classroom, to have the principal as the instructional leader of the school, interfacing on a regular basis with his or her staff to identify through evaluations, through goal setting and other means, the professional development that's going to make the greatest impact in that teacher's ability to deliver instruction in their classroom.
You mentioned in a press release earlier that this was that, citing Dr. Payne, that this was up to a $4 million saving annually for these changes. Now I'm hearing 2.6 million. What has changed since that time?
It's 2.6, and it's because we were accurately able to detect the savings once the interim secretary was appointed with our financial people look at budgets. And so with very clear accuracy, 2.6 is the number.
And that's because you had Hirsch in there to actually
Correct.
be able to look at the numbers closer.
You're correct.
One other thing could be thrown out there too is there's been reports come out, I've seen in the press too, of 750,000 savings or maybe even no savings. So there's two ways to look at this. We started at 4 million and landed on 2.6, or we started at 750 or nothing and landed on 2.6, and so it's substantial any way you cut it.
And I would add, if I might, Governor, and to answer the question, that we anticipate there are additional savings through the other agencies, but we just don't know what those look like now. But as the implementation of the services of those other agencies occurs, I'm sure those savings will rise to the top.
And Ryan, you referenced the $4 million figure that I shared in a release. That was based on, I think, it was really an estimate as to what the potential savings could be all in when you look at all the agencies, including the programs that will be assumed by the Department of Education, the other agencies, that the savings could be approaching $4 million. So again, I still think that that's within the range, and as the governor's indicated, $2.6 million that's been confirmed, identified now. Obviously, that represents considerable savings for our taxpayers.
On a question of strategy here, I know you said that you had, there was some sort of compromise here, but I'm just trying to ultimately find out why you signed this bill. If you support, creating a new department, and, you're going to have to at least have legislation to do that, why didn't you veto that bill and then say, hey, we're going to have this made special session, and Chairman Espinoza, I want you to provide me a new bill that creates this department I want, instead of me signing this one that does not create this department I want. Why didn't you not just veto this bill and then call for a new bill that would actually do what you ultimately want to get done?
Well, listen, it could be argumentative. I mean, there could be lots of different routes and everything, hypotheticals, but the bottom line of the whole thing is we need to get started. We need to get moving, and this was the right thing to do wholeheartedly. After consulting all the people and seeing the absolute redundancy and seeing the true savings of 2.6 or more dollars, then we need to sign the bill. And as far as the commitment from all of us to create the Department of the Arts and to secure that position and let it really report to me, was I think really good. And the last thing that I would say is these people are committed to education. And if there's anybody that's here that doesn't believe with all their soul that I am all in on education, go back to the first State of the State. Go back to the guy that said education should be our centerpiece. Go back to the guy that said we ought to give our teachers a pay raise. On and on and on. Education should be the economic driver within our state. Everything should evolve around education. If there's something here that is, as we go down the pathway, that we can correct, or if there's something here that we need to tweak, we tweak, because we're committed first and foremost to the goodness of education. But we don't need to keep throwing money away and absolutely have all the things that are happening if we can do it a better way. And that's what we're supposed to do. Listen, I thank y'all much. We got to go.
Yeah, good job.
Thank you.